Okay, of Klout and cliffs snatching us back from the brink of disaster, will technology save humanity or sink it? A view from Precipice edge. Now you may have wondered something very simple, is how did I start to do the stuff that I do these days? Because it seems kind of counterintuitive, you know, if you say the word pathologist and try to think of what a pathologist does, and if you look at what I'm doing these days, it's just kind of hard to figure out. So I'm going to tell you a story today of how I became so sort of bonded to my technology, because it kind of saved my life, literally, in December 2004, in a way that wouldn't happen today, because the world's different. But I also wanted to tell you about something I know a fair amount about, and that is Klout score, K-L-O-U-T. But I do it with some embarrassment, because there's a possibility, like many new things, that Klout may turn out to be absolutely unimportant. so that in the great scheme of things, but there will be some metric you can imagine, like your social media activity and so on, and you know, people who commit really horrendous crimes, some of them fall into that small category of young people not on Facebook, right? It doesn't mean that you're a terrible person if you're not on Facebook, but there are. So there probably are metrics in terms of social media use and your general impact on the internet that one day will factor into hiring decisions and all sorts of things like that. Right now, in some marketing programs, you're required to do certain things in terms of achieving certain Klout scores. It's not really widespread beyond that. Okay, just another pitch for the Her movie. So somehow I'd like you all to experience it. If you really think it sounds like something you would not enjoy at all, just watch the trailers. So you'll know about that, right? But it's a kind of prediction of the future that I think is quite surprising. And in fact, if you look at the bottom half of this slide, this is from a really famous tech guy, the guy who discovered the technology of Ethernet. Now, Ethernet isn't anything particularly important to us today, but at one time it was really, really big deal. And so this was like Mr. Ethernet or Dr. Ethernet, Robert Metcalfe, and he had this technology column, From the Ether. And this is what he wrote about the internet about 2 years after the development of the World Wide Web. Almost all of the many predictions that are being made about 1996 hinge on the internet's continuing exponential growth. But I predict the internet, which only just recently got this section here in InfoWorld, will soon go spectacularly supernova, and in 1996 catastrophically collapse. Here's why. There soon will be only World Wide Web ghost pages. And money, investors poured lots of money into the internet, and he goes on and tells how it's all gonna die, you know? So he was wrong. So when I tell you today about Klout, as if I think Klout is something important, I may be wrong too. And you may find in a few years that Klout doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, let's give it a try. We don't know that Klout will be important in the future, but it has partnership with Bing and Chrome and many big companies suggesting that it will be. It has a secret proprietary algorithm. So we don't really know how Klout score is created. And there's some really strange things. If you look at the professional relationship between myself and Julie Lin Wang, okay, Julie Lin Wong is a young physician who comes to teach in this course. And when she comes to town, my Klout score goes way up, and we don't know why. Hers doesn't. I mean, there are little blips, but when she comes to town to lecture to you guys, my Klout score has this meteoric rise, and we don't know why. Osmer Zayan, who will be lecturing to you next week, he gives, and the week after, he gives 3 lectures on AI. His Klout score is now much higher than mine. It was much lower than mine, and the difference is he has a Wikipedia entry. I don't. So if you look me up on Wikipedia, I'm not there. He is. But, and so I think that's why most of his astronomical Klout score up in the 70s is presumably due to his Wikipedia entry. But his Wikipedia entry started last May, and his meteoric rise up until the 70s didn't occur until many months later. Maybe some employee in Klout is supposed to go through every Wikipedia entry, but it takes time, you know? So we don't really know. But Ross and I are we're thinking of the Klout metric as also being related to this product that we just told you about, where you'd be having metrics related to your personal mood and feelings of well-being, and maybe that would be somehow related to Klout score. Now, is it possible to game the system and to artificially raise your Klout score? Yes, you can, but all these things have consequences. If you falsely claim that you're getting married, your Klout score will go up. If you falsely claim it's your birthday, your Klout score will go up. And if you contact a lot of people with very high Klout score and get them to contact you, then your Klout score will go up. But if they find that you're a real loser and this is just irritating, then eventually your Klout score goes way, way down. But so it doesn't seem to be possible to reliably game the system in any permanent way, although you can create little blips. And who has the highest Klout score? Well, for a long time, Britney Spears and the guy you see here, who you may not recognize, of course you do recognize, Justin Bieber. They had a higher Klout score than Obama, so this was felt to be not logical. So they fixed the algorithm so that world leaders and people with big impact in the world have a higher Klout score, slightly anyway, than people like Britney Spears and Justin Bieber. So you don't have to be that active on social media to have a high Klout score if you're like running a major country in the world. And the object is really not to directly try to raise your Klout score at all, but just to have it in the background of things that you're trying to do with social media anyway, as you become more successful at it, as the content that you provide becomes more widely shared and appreciated, your Klout score will go up. So at this point, I thought you might be kind of bored with this presentation. How long is he going to go on about Klout? So I thought, what's better than a song, right? So Joel Crichton wrote a song for this course, and I realized I hadn't played it for you yet. And he and I today have identical Klout scores. We both have a Klout score of 60. So let's just see here. Okay. Yep. So let me try to get out of this and find the song for you. So he's about your age. He's 26. He wrote a play called 25 when he was 24, figuring the play would become famous when he was 25. So anyway, tried to predict what it feels like to be 25 when you're 2024. It's another kind of predicting the future. And in that play, he had, okay, let's see, I could probably find it this way. He used the phrase imaginational necrosis. And I never heard any non-physician use the word necrosis before. And I spent a large part of my research life studying something called acute tubular necrosis. So we kind of immediately bonded around this use of what I thought was a word that only physicians used. Okay, let's see. Here it comes, coming at you very soon.
I've got a half-life ticking and EKG readings that are beating the shore to dust. I've got a smartphone crystal ball, touch screen and all, but the screen won't touch. And it's this analog melody stuck in my head, and it's driving me insane, cause I got this chronic condition that'll suffer no remission, and I'm feeling that I ain't got time. Ooh yeah, yeah. Show me an android heart, an AI mind, and a spirit in the machine. Show me an optimistic and futuristic prognosis and what it means. Help me to see the future between the sutures. Will it be good or bad, or will we recognize a thing when we all pull the pin? Will it resemble what we had? It's a singularity. Yeah, it's a singularity. Beyond event horizon, will we wisen up or find a kind of glory? What's the story of the singularity?
What you hear is not a test, it's a singularity. A resting, isn't it? To envision it, or does the future look rather dissonant? Robots now, but what about later? Will it be like Terminator? Or are we headed for utopia? Well, follow me and I'll show ya.
Voices from every field across the world are coming to ya. Attend the class or watch from home, it's coming to ya. Kim Solez has the contacts and he's bringing them to ya. It's coming to ya, the future's coming to ya. So come to the future.
Technology and the future of medicine. Lab MP 590. Okay, so hopefully that will make this not quite as boring for you. Anyway, you had to hear that sometime. And of course, if you want, you can go back and watch it over and over and over again. And that doesn't have to be the final version. You know, we could do a new version of that in the future. So, you know, it's surprising to me the things that raise my Klout score. If you look at that picture in the upper right, this is a fluorescence microscope. I use that every day. To me, it's just like, you know, boring part of my life. And I was so amazed, I put a picture of a fluorescent microscope on Facebook, and people went absolutely crazy. They thought it was beautiful and cool and so on. So that actually raised my score at that time in my life more than anything else. I had more people liking that picture than virtually any other content I had put up. You don't have to pay any attention to Klout. I just wanted you to know that we've been discussing it in this course, and it may turn out to be something important. In science fiction, you may know the idea of WUFFIE points, W-U-F-F-I-E. And this is somewhat comparable to WUFFIE in science fiction. Okay, the main thing I wanted to tell you about is how a cell phone saved my life in 2004. And this has some rather amusing features. When your life gets saved, I think maybe the first question is, were you doing something stupid, right? I guess the official answer, as I'll give you the evidence for, is we were not being stupid when this happened, but you'll have to make your own decision about this. One of my closest friends in medicine, when he heard about this in 2004, he looked at me and smiled and said, "Not stupid," right? So I don't know if that really meant he thought it was not stupid. So this is Signal Hill. You know, it's where the first radio waves were sent transatlantically. So it is a very important technology milestone sort of place. The top of that hill is where Marconi sent the radio waves from. So this is what that hill looks like in the winter. And you may know that there's some sort of linkage between me and Leonard Cohen. You may not know who Leonard Cohen is, but living in Canada, you should know he's Canada's most famous poet, singer, songwriter, and I am like high up in the ranking of fan leaders in Leonard Cohen fandom, believe it or not. And since 2002, I've been running Leonard Cohen Nights, a celebration of Leonard Cohen's music and art and associated things in September. And so there was another lady in Canada, Vicki Hines, who had also been running Leonard Cohen events. She calls hers the Feast of Cohen, and it's in between Christmas and New Year's, and it's in St. John's, and you know, it's mainly a fishing community, and they can't fish in the winter. They're like a lot of really bored people, and they like nothing better than coming together for 3 or 4 days and celebrating Leonard Cohen's work. So because she was a fan leader for Leonard Cohen in Canada, and I was too, she asked me and my wife to come there as their special guests in 2004. There were these seats in the auditorium right in the center for us and all this kind of stuff. And it seemed really cool to do that. So my wife and I went there. We arrived on December 28th with the plans to attend the December 29th performance at 8 p.m. And we actually did do that, as you'll find out. Not quite the way we had planned. So I'd been to Signal Hill before. I also, as some of you know, run an initiative about responding to the medical needs of earthquakes. And in 1990, there was a huge earthquake in Iran, and it happened to coincide with a meeting in St. John's. So I was like, in the summertime, in June of 2000, well, anyway, at that period, I had spent a lot of time, and I knew it was very pleasant walking there, at least in the summertime. And when we looked out of our window in the hotel, the hill was there. It was sort of beckoning to us, you know. Come to me, this hill was saying, or at least I imagined. So anyway, my wife and I thought, well, why don't we go up there? So we didn't have a lot of other things to do. Come to me, come to me. So the next day we went up there. So after lunch, we took a cab up to Cabot Tower, which is the building you see up the top there. And Cabot Tower has a gift shop. And the lady running the gift shop said she was having a bad day. I don't know why, but that's what she said. And we bought some things, and then we asked her how to get back down. And she said, there's this North Head Trail. It's beautifully scenic right along the sea, and you'll be back downtown in 40 minutes. She didn't give us any other options. It's not like she said, well, there's a North Head Trail. No, she just said there's a North Head Trail. Well, in the summer, that's the right answer, but in the winter, it's lethal. Like we didn't, it was scenic, just like she said, but we noticed there were no other footprints. This maybe should have been a clue when you get to this stupid, not stupid question, but anyway, it was scenic, and it was bright sun and stuff, but the short days, sun, we began to, and the other thing for you to know is my wife was wearing a normal coat, but I was wearing this high-tech coat. It actually comes with an instruction manual telling you how to take it on and off, which most coats don't need that, and it's very slick, so the surface has almost no friction at all. I never really thought of the importance of the friction of a coat, but it became important later. I used to bring that coat to class, but I thought that's boring. So we started off on this North Head Trail, and it was scenic and stuff, and then we began to lose the light, and we also noticed there was very strong wind and sea spray. I mean, the sea was a long way down, but the wind was strong enough. It was sending the sea spray up, and so the cell phone, the circuit board was shorting out from this salt water, but I'm really into tech things, so I'd spent a lot of my bored moments in the hotel room charging extra batteries. You can't do that today. You can't open up your phone and change the battery. But back then you could. So I had extra batteries, but I had one extra battery. There was this difficulty of the phone not seeming to work. But things got worse and worse, and finally we could not walk upright. We were crawling on our bellies at a very steep incline with a sharp drop to the sea right beside us. And I kept slipping toward that cliff edge. And my wife said, I don't think I can help you. And I think that's right. She couldn't help me. She was in this normal coat with a good friction, but I kept slipping toward the edge of the cliff. But finally, the other thing is, it's bad news when you stop shivering. When you're cold and you stop shivering, that means that, later on comes death, right? Because as long as you're shivering, that means your body is sort of physiologically normal, reacting to the cold. But when you stop shivering, some of you know about paradoxical undressing. As you get very, very cold, you may take off all your clothes, somehow crazily thinking that this is going to help. Anyway, all sorts of bad things happen when you stop shivering. So we noticed that we stopped shivering. But finally, there are these 22 bridges, and we reached the 17th bridge, and I grabbed onto the wooden post of the 17th bridge, dragged out my cell phone, and dialed 911. And it was a really slow news day. I think the rescuers and everybody else had very little to do that day, and luckily we were out on this cliff edge, so that make their life exciting. So I kept changing the batteries so I could keep talking to them, and they said, we will come rescue you. Because it was very obvious where we were. We told them the 17th bridge. The bridges are numbered. They knew right where that was and so on. This is the battery. This is the cell phone. And they sent a team, but they do it in a way that only one person is really put at maximum risk. So the rest of the team stays up in secure ground. So the guy on the slippery slope with all the ice and so on, that's just one guy connected to the others by ropes. So he rappels down, and he's got 3 ropes. You may wonder, there are only 2 of us, my wife and why did he have 3 ropes? Well, the digital camera got its own rope. So 1 rope for my wife, 1 rope for me, and 1 rope for the digital camera. So we gradually inched back up, and we reunited with a larger team, and then we went back up to the top of the hill. And there were police cars and media and everything there. Yeah, so why don't I show you that video? But the cool thing was that the police brought us back to the hotel. We freshened up and zipped over to the concert hall, and we were right on time. We walked in at 8 o'clock, sat in our seats, and everything was good. So, okay, I'm going to show you the video now of this. So this is the CBC video.
Dr. Kim Solez is a big Leonard Cohen fan. He came all the way from Edmonton just to go to this 4-day tribute to Cohen on stage at the LSPU Hall in downtown St. John's. Of course, there's more to the city than just music. Signal Hill, for example. Some well-meaning local resident even showed Dr. Solez and his wife Elaine how to get to the trail.
She was recommending that for us. I guess she didn't realize there'd been a bit of snow and ice and a really hard-packed snow.
The Solezes set out from Cabot Tower around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, figuring they'd breeze through the trail. No such thing. By the time they reached this part, they were crawling on their bellies.
You could see the other bridges, but no path and just hard-packed snow. I was really scared because I felt so close to falling off the edge, and I honestly felt that any attempt for me to get to that next bridge was going to really tumble me into the drink there, and no one would ever see me again. It was a very steep drop.
Around 4:30, stuck on the ice with night falling fast, Dr. Solez called 911 on his cell phone, and a rescue crew set out to bring them back.
It was really frightening. I've been to a lot of parts of the world that are dangerous on record, where everybody recommends that you not go there. But the real danger, this was tangible danger you can feel, not just the theory, not just an advisory you read on the net. This was real danger.
How do you feel? Cold?
My lips were frozen.
Dr. Solez and his wife got a ride back to their hotel, frozen, with bruised knees and a bit shaken up, but otherwise okay, and with enough time to freshen up and make the night's show. Atsritsori, CBC News, St. John's.
So there's one thing that in honesty I don't know the answer to, and that's what happened to the shopkeeper. I never followed up to find out who she was or whether there were consequences. I have no idea, but I think probably her day that was already not going so well got even worse. So anyhow, so you can understand maybe that I feel kind of grateful to technology. Later on that day, Leonard Cohen sent me a message, "I'm glad you're back on terra firma." So we had a really good time at the show, and it was a very positive experience. And we were more celebrities than we would have been if we'd just been these ordinary people from Edmonton. So now that wouldn't happen now in the same way. Things were much more restricted on the one hand and open on the other hand then. For instance, my cell phone actually didn't have access to the network there. You may all know in your cell phone bill, there's this line, 911 access, that gives you access to making a 911 call, even if your cell phone doesn't have access to the network for other reasons. But that almost never happens. You don't go anywhere where your phone doesn't work in the local network, or that hardly ever happens. But back then that was very common. So the only working network there was mainly a French-speaking network and So I couldn't make an ordinary phone call. The only kind of call I could make was 911. So when I pay that part of my phone bill, I feel like that's worth paying. It's like, I don't know, $1.23 or something for that service. So it's good value for money as far as I'm concerned. And the fact that I had a working phone when I was stranded, that was sort of unusual then. Now, of course you would have a phone. Your phone goes with you everywhere. It's a part of you. I mean, either you can look at it one way, that it's stupid to say that a cell phone saves your life. Everybody has a cell phone, and if their life is in danger, they call somebody. That's not really a cell phone saving your life. But back then, it really was like that. I mean, the idea of having the extra battery, changing it, just barely being able to call 911, it was all quite, exciting. And it couldn't happen in 2014, just because life is different now. But it does make you kind of ponder the relationship between technology and the continuance of humanity, both in general and in specific individuals, to what extent is technology saving us every day? To what extent is it threatening us? It's sort of hard to figure out which side the balance sits on. And you can also see the way that when technology is successful, it sort of disappears into the background. So none of you would say that your cell phone has ever saved your life, not because it hasn't, but because you just don't think about it that way. It's so much a part of your life that, you'd say, I made a phone call. You wouldn't say my cell phone saved my life, because it's just the same as when AI is new in any discipline. People talk about they're studying artificial intelligence, but as soon as it's working, they don't call it AI anymore. It's just part of the system. And so very much for you, you have AI working in your lives in many different sectors, but you just don't think of it that way. So, is it possible we're safer because of technology and we just don't realize it? Yeah. It's also possible that we're more in danger because of technology and we just don't realize it. So I think things could be on either side. Is it possible that Klout is making us better, more goal-directed internet citizens? Yes. It's also possible that Klout is meaningless and absolutely superficial and fluffy and of no importance, and I shouldn't have even presented it in this course. But anyway, that's the deal. So that is the end of the lecture for today. I would be happy to answer any questions you may have. And while you're waiting to think of questions, I just wanted to reinforce what I sent you about Marcus Hutter's presentation. So it sits in your life in the following way. This is the presentation that the Dean of Science, Jonathan Schaefer, has said is incredibly complicated. And he was so proud that he's giving you something simple and easy to absorb, whereas Marcus Hutter's stuff is incredibly difficult. The other thing to tell you about Marcus Hutter, which I think is really exciting, is that other AI researchers consider him an outsider. Now that could be really cool, right? Maybe he's the only guy with the right answers. But the AI researchers you will meet here, none of them are like friends of his or share the same ideas. So Marcus Hutter comes closest perhaps to visualizing what the singularity really will be like, and it's a different view from any other view you will get here. I think the AI researchers on this campus are proud of being a kind of, community with mutual respect, all that sort of thing. And they go to meetings together and they hang out with other people who are similar to them and so on. Somehow Marcus Hutter is a bit outside of that. So what does this mean for you? In the lecture that I give on Thursday, I'm going to refer to his work. I'm going to tell you something about it. And maybe you would understand my lecture better if you listen to his lecture. On the other hand, if you start listening to his lecture and you're just not getting anywhere, it's not really a criticism of you, because remember what Jonathan Schaefer said, it's incredibly difficult. And it's not that the words on the slide are hard to figure out what they mean. That's easy. It's how did he get there? What's the logical jump? How does this all make sense? So I want to contrast that then. In, I think, the third week of February, there is a lecture then from David Pierce. And this is another kind of opportunity for you to study something on your own, but the motivation's different. If you don't watch Marcus Hutter's presentation, I'll never know, and maybe you'll never suffer any bad, effects from not having watched that. But not looking at David Pierce's stuff and then coming to class that day will make you feel bad, because you'll think, what an opportunity, and how come all the other students know more about this guy's work than I do? And it's not just his work on getting rid of all pain and suffering. It's also the whole gender thing, because he's one of the people who's talked most clearly about the obvious fact that we could save millions of lives in the world if all leaders were women. I know it sounds stupid, impractical, but if you just look at the facts that, the male territoriality, women can be evil, women can be just as bad as men, but they don't tend to want to take over territory the same as men. And you can see that, the evidence for what he is talking about is in fact very strong. And it's one of these other crazy ideas where when you talk about it without him here, you say, well, I can think of a billion reasons why all leaders can't be women. That just wouldn't work. I don't care if it would save a bunch of lives. It just, it's not practical. But with him here, it's a whole different experience debating this. But I realized there's another side of this. And I've forgotten the name of this woman, but there's a woman philosopher who believes that if women had been in charge, we would still be living in grass huts, that all the major advances of, if you will, mankind or humankind have been done by males. And it's not just some sort of prejudice. And she feels as strongly about this as David Pierce does about the fact that if women were in charge of everything, the human race would be much better off. So this year, what I'm going to do is have him, debate this other woman's ideas that men have been responsible for most of the major advances in the world. Meanwhile, he's saying that women should be in charge of everything. I think it should be really interesting. And it's not that I'll know and give you a bad grade if you don't read, but you won't enjoy the session. I think you want to do some background so that you know as much as the other students about these issues. Because this is not a lecture. It's the students coming down and talking to him one-on-one by Skype, one after the other of you. That's how that session works. It's a wonderful opportunity. He's a famous guy. He is the co-founder of the transhumanism movement, the entire movement. On the other hand, when you begin to think that he's like much higher status in the world than you, he and I are Facebook friends. It's the most uncanny thing. When I post some mundane family gathering, like a birthday party or something, he always likes it. And I have the feeling that's because in his life there aren't things like what I'm posting. I'm trying to think, well, what would a life like that be, you know? So it's just really interesting. And it's possible to get to know him fairly well too, I think, during the course of this session, and that's bound to be valuable. So it's not that I'm forcing you to do anything, I'm just telling you what you will feel. And I've had students tell me this, if only I had known it was going to be like this, I would have done more reading, I would have watched more of his videos, you know. I felt so stupid. The other students knew he had done this and that and so on. So I think you would want to, in your own interests, look up David Pearson, what he has done. And if it turns out that Marcus Hutter is just not for you and you think Jonathan Schaefer is absolutely right, this is incredibly difficult and not suitable, then you don't. But the other funny thing about it, this may happen to some of you, depending upon which browser you use and how you watch that, you may find it hard to stop. Once it starts, most PowerPoints with audio are not like that. You just click and it stops. But this sort of, he obviously wishes to go until the end. It's not like you have to crush the computer under your foot or something to get it to stop, but it can be a little bit hard to get it to stop. So don't say I didn't warn you. Okay, so we have 14 minutes. So the class can end earlier. You can ask me some questions. Any questions about? Yeah.
Can I ask you a question about your company?
Yeah.
Or on class? I was just wondering what made you guys decide to focus on like emotions in smartphones? Like what gave you that initial direction?
It's a really funny story. So maybe this may be more detailed than you want, but it's the truth. So Ashlyn Bernier, who is the manager for the university's venture mentoring program, was one of the first 2 students in this course in the winter of 2012. And so she's always had sort of a soft spot in her heart for this course and for me and stuff, because it was a rather unique experience. So she told me when the venture mentoring program began that she would like us to be one of the first mentored entities. But that meant we had to have a project, we had something to be mentored for. So there's me and there's all these young people from the course who are interested in the company. So there's an evening, they tell me that they're going to vision together, and then when they're ready, they'll let me know and I'll come and visit them and they'll tell me what they've accomplished. Only that's not what happened. They got together and they said, we don't know what we're going to do. I don't know. I don't want Dr. Solez to come because we don't have anything to tell him, you know. When I got that message, I said, listen, guys, this is a tremendous wasted opportunity. The university has put this program together. We're saying we're ideal for it if only we have a project. So you guys have met and said, we don't know what the project is. That's like the stupidest possible outcome. Why don't you go back and rethink this? So it was under that circumstance that they came up with this project. So they came up with the idea in about an hour and a half after I told them to go back to work, saying we don't have a project, and it kind of fits with a number of things. Ross is quite interested in this issue of personal well-being. He's a scuba instructor. That's part of what he does. beyond being a PhD student in physics. And when I was in medical school, the medical school that I went to, this will really surprise you, all the leaders were psychiatrists. The president of the hospital was a psychiatrist, the dean was a psychiatrist, everybody important. They were all psychiatrists. We had a lot of famous psychiatrists at the University of Rochester in the years that I was there, 68 to 72. And although I didn't go into psychiatry on every standardized test, my scores in psychiatry are like way higher than anything else. And in a strange sort of way, I use it every day. Like I notice things about eye contact and body language and stuff. It's part of what you learn. And I think it's just part of human interaction. So I'm also interested, although one would never, this guy is a kidney pathologist and he's interested in well-being. What's going on here, But really, from that early, like from the first day of, medical school where we met these leaders and kind of got to know who the cool faculty at this particular medical school, I've always been interested in this sort of thing. So it kind of suits us from that point of view. And it's surprising enough, it doesn't seem to put us into conflict. Like people would say, well, you're starting a company, huh? So how does this conflict with your job as a renal pathologist? Well, not at all. It doesn't have anything to do with a renal pathologist. Like it's not even close to overlapping. So it's kind of fun. It validates my status as an interdisciplinary person, I guess. That's a much longer answer than you wanted, but yeah, that's how it started. So other questions? You want to pass him the microphone? Yeah.
Should be on. Yeah, Dr. Solez, you told us a really personal story about how technology saved your life, but could you discuss also the irony today that the same technology might be more of the likely cause of that accident? I mean, most of these days people will be on their phone, like checking Facebook as they walk, and that would likely be sort of a cause of accidents. What's your take on the irony in just back then and today, how technology can save or cause harm?
Yeah, well, I think that's largely, those are many of the things that we talk about in this course. In other words, what are all the ways that technology could wipe out the human race or could end individual human lives? There are lots of ways in which that could happen. A lot of them, it's really interesting, this crossover, if you will, between science fiction and real life. Like in the nanotech world, everybody talking about nanotech shows the technical terms, really ugly term, nano-louse, this little individual nanoparticle with moving arms and stuff that it looks like it does really cool things. That does not exist. And yet even serious scientists talking about nanotech begin their lectures with these science fiction-y pictures of a nanostructure that does not exist yet. And similarly, are we worried about things that will never exist? I mean, gray goo, this idea of nanoparticles would eat everything up that contains carbon and leaving only, worthless things behind. Maybe that will never happen. It's a possible way that the world could end, but maybe it is the absolutely statistically least likely way. So yeah, I think it goes beyond irony. It's really truly complex, this question of how humanity's destiny and machines' destiny and technology's destiny, how they are interacting, And I think that's part of what I see as the value in seeing this movie, Her, that it gives you one other kind of view of that. Yeah, so yes, I see irony. Yeah. Other questions? Yeah.
So I guess I'm not as well versed in the lingo, but I'm not really sure what the singularity is.
Yes, okay. So the singularity is that point in time, and you'll find many slides in my lectures and says technological singularity at the top, and it has a paragraph, and usually it's a Ray Kurzweil quote. So it's the point at which machines are smarter than we are, and they can self-improve and evolve much more quickly, so they take over the future agenda of the world. And we can only understand what's going on in the world and have an influence over it if we cooperate or merge with them in some way. That's the basic idea. It's been described in other ways, a rupture in the fabric of human history. I mean, that's one other way to look at it. The word refers to the event horizon around a black hole in physics and the uncertainty of what's going on there. And so, in a sense, the singularity is unknowable by definition. It doesn't mean we can't approach trying to figure out what it's going to be like, but one of its defining characteristics is we will not be able to understand what's going on after it takes place. It's predicted to take place in 2045, so 31 years from now, and you all may feel that you may not be alive then, but you will be. I mean, I'm absolutely certain that you will be. The Hayflick limit in human cells is 140 years. Maybe Preeti knows more about this than I do. But so you can think, well, what would stop us? If we get rid of human diseases, what would stop us? And probably even that is not an absolute barrier. But let's just suppose that with advances in medicine that we get rid of all the common diseases that kill us off before then most of you could live to be 140 or more years old. And it's not just the wrinkled prune idea, being terribly sick and blind and senile. No, it's you as a relatively youthful, 100-year-old, youthful 120-year-old, because we'd be able to reverse most of the parts of aging. So that's one of the basic things that we're talking about in this course. There are people that predict it's going to take a lot longer than that. But Ray Kurzweil, who's been honored by 4 U.S. presidents and is sort of the big famous author in this area, he predicted the fall of the Soviet Union, the internet. There are all sorts of other things that you would think are not predictable that he successfully predicted. So he's a guy with a good history of predicting things, and he predicts that this will occur in 2045. So it's important, and you will experience it, and it means that the things we talk about in this course, someday you will know whether they were wrong or they were right. It's not just something in the future. You'll actually live through this. So. You look rather stunned by that answer. Was that what you thought it was, or is this something different?
With that answer being said, I'm just curious as to are people looking forward to this event happening, or is it going to be like afterwards, like some Terminator style where Skynet takes over and humanity is on the last brink of existence because machines
as I presented the first day, both of those astounding ideas are equally possible. The post-scarcity world of abundance, where the cost of everything tends towards zero, and you can have anything you want, any experience you want, that's about equally likely to some tremendous catastrophe that will wipe us all out, and so the human species won't exist anymore. So everything in between is also possible. So yeah, I don't know exactly what's going to happen. But you can imagine that this could turn out really well, that wealth creation in a general sense becomes so easy that nobody has to work anymore, robots do all the work. The top of Maslow's pyramid, the self-actualization stuff, that's all that's left for us to do. And if we're creative enough, that should be a very satisfying life. So, yeah. Anyway, our time is up. Thank you very much, and see you on Thursday.